and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Tamara, thank you so much for being with us on the programme. Firstly, just in the last couple of minutes, your own agency has said that civil order is starting to break down in Gaza, with warehouses being ransacked by thousands of desperate Palestinians. Just talk to us a little bit about the situation there. What exactly has been happening?
The operative word is despair. And the operative word is civilians in Gaza displaced en masse from the north of the Strip to the middle and southern parts with very little on them, most of them taking shelter in UNRWA schools and other buildings. That is the UN Agency for Palestine Refugees. We're talking about over 600,000 people scattered in our schools and buildings. And these are buildings that were not originally set up to become shelters, and especially not for that big amount of people. A trickle of aid coming in, UN and aid agencies very low on supplies, very low on fuel, which means rationing the use of water pumps for clean drinking water, rationing the use of bakeries, rationing the fuel that goes to hospitals for life-saving machines. Therefore, with the total blackout in communication yesterday, it was extremely difficult to organize any distribution of food. And yes, indeed, people grew much more desperate, and many went into UNRWA warehouses to take some wheat flour in order to make bread to survive.
And as you say, more than 600,000 displaced people, they're sheltering in 150 UN installations right across the Gaza Strip. Just tell us a little bit more about the conditions in those facilities. How overcrowded are they? Just paint a picture of the conditions if you can.
The conditions are of colossal magnitude. You need to visualize a school, a regular school that receives, let's say, up to 2,000 children every day. Now, inside these schools, we have several thousand, 7,000, 8,000 people sheltering. Because of the overcrowding, we are starting to see serious public health risks, from lice to respiratory diseases. It is extremely difficult to assist entire families who have sought shelter in these schools, and it's extremely difficult to assist them in a way that is dignified and that is up to the standard that we want. In these schools, people are seeking protection under a UN blue flag. People are seeking at least their basic needs in food and in clean water. Some mothers are telling us they now dream of bathing their children. We have given priority to mothers, children, adolescent girls in the classrooms because they can close the doors. Meanwhile, men and young men are sleeping in courtyards of these schools. And as we approach winter, we truly wonder how we're going to protect them from the cold, especially given the very, very low number of trucks that go in daily from the Rafah crossing. A handful of trucks every day is definitely not what a humanitarian crisis of this magnitude requires. And particularly, the lack of fuel will not help the continuation of bakeries, of electricity generators, and of clean water. And if people don't have access to clean water when they're overcrowding in shelters, this is a recipe for a public health hazard.
And you've described it there as a trickle of aid currently arriving through the Rafah crossing from Egypt. How much aid is needed realistically?
Realistically, before this crisis, around 500 trucks of food and different commercial goods and fuel used to go into Gaza every single day. From Israel through Eretz and Kerem Shalom crossings, and also through Rafah from Egypt. So if we look at the last few days, and we see that the biggest number of trucks was 20 trucks per day, onto a situation where over half the population is now displaced, it is truly a trickle. Plus, these trucks are coming in with mixed content. So there will be a little bit of food, a little bit of blankets, a little bit of clean bottled water. It is extremely difficult to plan a large scale distribution humanitarian operation when we do not have predictable lists with a quantity that is sufficient for the minimum consumption needs for human beings.
And Tamara, tragically, more than 50 of your own staff have been killed in Gaza since the start of the war. Just talk to us about the kind of conditions that volunteers are facing there.
Indeed, most of the UNRWA staff, the agency I represent, the UN Agency for Palestine Refugees, most of my colleagues in Gaza are from Gaza themselves. So 13,000 colleagues from Gaza are exactly in the same condition as most civilians in Gaza. Many of my colleagues were displaced. Many of my colleagues today live in the UNRWA shelters. Tragically, we have lost 53 colleagues for now. Some of them were engineers, doctors, teachers, people like me, like you, like our viewers. Most of them were killed in their homes or in the shelters while they were with their families or while they were distributing assistance. In fact, I am with you now while UNRWA is holding a mourning ceremony to honor the memory of my colleagues who were killed in this conflict.
Tamara, we'll have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much for your time. That is Tamara Al-Rifai, Director of External Relations and Communications at the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees.
Thank you.